Panda. Huh.
That's where I know it from, at least. Skidoo,
Yeah.
go out for a skidoo is a total thing here in Canada.
I love that
So,
when the brand name becomes a verb. Like I always thought that, like, Google it,
yeah,
you know.
like Kleenex.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Um,
All I can think about is Kung Fu Panda with a skadoosh.
Yes.
Skadoosh.
Skadoosh.
skadoosh is cool too.
I think I just have to watch Kung Fu Panda, like, after we're done this
You
recording.
do.
Because
Really
I love
good
Jack
movies.
Black. I love Jack Black, so.
It's a pretty good one. My dad doesn't even really like animated movies, and he likes Kung Fu Panda.
They're
Gosh,
really
I don't know
good.
how you can't like an anime. Honestly, I have been leaning more toward animated things than, like, live action things
Me
as of
too.
late.
Okay, look, you asked how could you not like animated things? My dad doesn't even read books. He's not a man of culture.
Oh yeah, I guess that, like, fantasy kind of thing, not his thing.
And I don't mean man of culture in like a derogatory sense, but just like he doesn't
Not
really
as-
read.
yeah.
He watches, if he's watching TV, he's watching like fucking reality TV, and I'm like,
Bro.
y'all really watch? I'm over here working on god tier television to try to make art. Even though I'm taking out garbage and putting up tents, I want to work on shit that's art, right? And
Right.
I hope that my family would like take some of my recommendations of the really good shows, but then I like show up for Christmas and they're like watching fucking road rage videos, and it's like, I know how this shit's produced. They go
Right.
onto YouTube, they find people's dash cams, they make a comment asking if they can purchase it. They purchase it, they for like a very small sum amount of money, and then they clip and edit all of the car crashes together. They have a small writing team write a narrative that they want the narrator to say, and bada bing, bada boom, you can string together a whole fucking production without needing to have cameras or any on-scene anything. If you're like on that level of like not even having a camera on the person talking, because I know some shows will at least record the person who's narrating, or at least they used to back in the day. Remember,
Right.
like there'd be the narrator between like shit on. It's terrible and I'm not advocating for it, but if you've ever seen an episode of 911, you know there's like that dickhead in the beginning who's introducing it and everything, right? They don't even fucking do that for car crash or like road rage shit anymore. It's just like straight up, oh, here's what's going on, let me sensationalize this and disaster straight.
Yeah, everything
like,
feels really like farmed, you know, like
Mhm.
we just farmed the internet for some B-roll and stuck it, you know, like.
So anyways, when I say my
Real
dad
quick,
doesn't
I
like
did want to say
animated stuff,
hello to
that's the kind of guy
Brian.
he is.
Brian is here in the chat. I wanted to say hello to Brian. Hello.
Hello.
One of our oldest,
Hi.
oldest, longest followers. Love, love, love. But it's funny, Sophia, that you were mentioning, like, you know, content, I guess, generation and whatnot and how it's done. So, has anyone been tuned into the occulty tag on social media or YouTube? Does anyone? No. Well, you should be.
Okay. I'm so excited for this because I do have a story for you surrounding occult, like, online stuff. But go on, please, Jam.
Occulty.
I do have stuff for you. But go ahead, go on.
Like herbal blends, and I was like, I'm not a herbalist. I don't know anything about that. So let's see how this episode's gonna go.
No, so the tag is #occultea, TEA.
Cool.
Like the T. So it's very catchy. I loved it. And I was like, what the fuck is... Like, my initial reaction when I saw all this occulty tags popping up everywhere, I was like, what the hell are we... What are we complaining about now, right? So I started looking in on them. The first occulty video that I came across was Thorn Moonies. So the occulty sort of, like, movement was started by Redheaded Witch on YouTube and Polish Folk Witch. Sorry if I'm misattributing those two. And I think a third one, kind of like the popular YouTubers. They kind of got together and they were like, "Hey, let's start this conversation, right? This conversation needs to be had. And essentially, what the whole conversation is centered around is the shit that happens in occult communities. So, like,
Oh my god.
a lot of it, and then all of this is centered around like prompts and like structured kind of questions. So I thought, and they shared the prompts out. So it really starts off like these are really in-depth questions that really address the problems of the cult community. Because like if you look on social media, everyone's fucking going at each other, right? You know, witch wars, quote unquote. Like everyone's like, well, you can't do this, and I'm policing
my
this
God.
practice, and you know this and that, and this conversation, this occulty conversation, it opens it up to literally anyone with some kind of. If you can write something down, a response or a video response or an audio response, this is like the conversation. This is the conversation that needs to be happening in the occult community. So like here's an example of like some of the prompts. So like here's like the first kind of thing. So topic 1 kind of centers on like impact on community. So here's like the first question that they kind of launch off with. What is my personal reasoning or inspiration behind sharing my practice online? What am I looking to achieve by participating? Do I seek to educate, learn, or connect? And this is like, and it just goes on into these different like kind of kinds of things. And I think, not to be like, we were talking about this first, but I think that's really like why I started this podcast, was to get
I was like,
away.
that sounds like our mission statement.
Right, you know what I mean? Like we're just here to talk about occult shit. Like we're not here to be like, well, you should cast your circle in this way because that's the way that my tradition does it. And it's like, no, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Like we're just here like, you could cast a circle with a bag of potato chips and like a Bic lighter and cool. Like let's go for it.
That's my kind of circle.
I just picture myself like going, one for me, one for the circle, one for me, one for the circle.
I was thinking like crushed potato chips in like a circle, you know what I mean? Like
there's a lot of
like,
salt
whoa,
on them.
that's
right?
fucking sacrilege.
Right?
You gotta eat. Okay, first off, you gotta eat them afterwards. So if you're gonna be respectful of the chips, you lay those fuckers out end to end so you can ritually consume your sacrament after. Okay, clean your forks appropriately before utilizing the chip circle. But I'm telling you, get some fucking Pringles because those fuckers hold up under
Pringles
some
is a
stress.
good idea.
And
Not
you
sponsored.
lay them end to end in a circle. Well, also because they're okay. Let's be real. Pringles aren't actually chips. They're
Crisps.
potato. They're potato paste.
Crisps.
No, listen. They're potato paste that gets poured into a molded uniform shape and then has flavor applied afterwards. Okay,
They're like the Legos of chips.
Why do you think they're all the exact same shape and other chips are like completely fucking random? Because a potato's not a uniform thing. Therefore, they reduced it to a slurry or some kind of
It's like
more
fried
liquid
mashed
state
potatoes.
to fill a mold. Yeah. I mean, it's great. I'm not gonna say they're terrible. I mean, they're probably terrible for you, but
What is
anyways, they would work excellent to make a circle out of Pringles.
So
That's
when
how
you
I
make
would
your
say to
Pringle
do it.
circle, share it with us, and we want to see it. But yeah,
Just
the
as a
occult
passport.
tag is where it's at, and like I definitely want to maybe like start like jumping into the conversation, I guess, a little bit, maybe like put the tag in there, because this is kind of what we've been talking about from day one. Granted, we take a little bit more of a queer perspective on it, because we're talking about witches betwixt means the witches who are betwixt, the witches who fall between the cracks, the ones that get kind of like glossed over, and often that's queer folk because of this sort of like binary bullshit that we kind of live under. So that's the whole reason why we're here. And already when you're a queer witch, when you have that kind of like queer element to yourself, you're already breaking the rules. You're already like breaking this like thing that's been established.
Breaking the law.
Right, like you're already bending things to your will. So like this whole kind of like delving deeper into the occult community and why are we doing what we're doing. So like what I want to really talk about is Thorne's fucking response, because she really did this thing where she kind of provided definitions of content creator versus influencer that I really loved and I resonated with. So what she was saying was a content creator is someone who, like, you are creating content, right? It's in the name of it's really a profession if you think about it. It is a profession, okay? So you're taking pictures and producing video. All of that is staged. All of that is marketed to a particular audience, right? An influencer is someone that really works with brand deals. They are the mouthpiece for these brands. Oftentimes, like, they're influencing you to buy a product, use a service, do a thing a certain way. And sometimes those two roles are combined, right? Content creator and influencer, that they can kind of be the same. But that's really like what she was kind of getting down to. She's like, listen, when we post, when us big YouTubers, when we're posting our videos and these like gorgeous pictures, of course it's fucking staged. Like, I don't know how to explain to you. Like, no, I don't look this magic. Like, I don't, like, my shit's not that organized on a daily basis. My lighting's not that naturally perfect. Like, of course it's fucking staged. Like, there's an element of smoke and mirrors, but that's not like any less impactful. You know what I mean?
I think there's a big, massive misunderstanding in how production works from the general public, right? Because we see a photo and we think, I could take that photo. And maybe you could if you had the right equipment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And all the right setup. But there's a lot of factors that go into it. They have high quality cameras. They have experienced professional lighting teams that are going to light them in a very specific spectrum with differing lights. And I'm not even going to pretend to understand how complicated it is because I'm not a lighting technician, but I've seen what they've done, what they do. It's really in depth, right? So when you have teams of specialized experts whose whole job it is do the light, do the makeup, do the photography, do the set decoration, to do the shit like that, right? And they come together to do a production. And a photography set is similar to a production, right? You have somebody directing and having them be in poses, right? Sometimes there's a little bit of video recorded with it, right? Like, it's a production, right? It's all the same shit. And it's not meant to be real. It's meant to be art. But we got into this weird misunderstanding with the hyper real and the hyper reality of modern society and how AI and all this bullshit is coming together. And like, you get this dissonance between real life and that hyper real, right? And we're not perfect. Photography is art. There's a reason it's edited to look larger than life. It's a production. But we treat this shit like this is an accurate representation because we're so caught up in the simulacrum of the spectacle and modern media consumption that I don't think we do enough to give the general public media literacy through like education and courses. And I feel like in a modern society that should be something that we do, because being able to break apart, like, say, propaganda or themes and like how all these things come together and how it can affect you in the way that you think should be something that a healthy society is teaching everybody, right? But when you don't, those systems can actually kind of be used to manipulate people, either completely unintentionally, which is happening in the case of those YouTubers who are doing like photo shoots and stuff, or very deliberately when it comes to, say, news institutions, right? So it's nuanced, and we don't have much control exerted in the modern world over these like massive conglomerates, right? Because they've been winning court cases and rights over us for the past several decades and gained exponential power that we can't really touch.
Yeah, all of that. Absolutely. And I was kind of like thinking about what you're saying about media literacy. I think maybe that's like a course or something that needs to be like, if anyone else wants to write that course, maybe I'll write the damn course. I think I'm pretty qualified. I have a master's in fucking communications as it is. And I kind of like do this for a living. Yeah. So I might be a little qualified, to do that. That might be,
Just a
you know,
scotch.
like media literacy for the occultist. You know, and really, it's probably geared more towards beginners. You know, because like when you're like, there is information you can get from witch talk. There is information that you can get from social media interactions. There is information that you can get, but you have to be able to learn how to discern, like, okay, so
Yep.
just because you see, sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So it's like, just
I was
because
agreeing
you
with
see
you, I
this,
apologize.
yeah, so just because you see this picture, right, from this witch, and it's got the incense, this beautiful incense holder, and this brass cauldron, and these intricate, beautiful, old-timey, antique-looking things, and you do not need all of those things to do magic. And I'm so sorry if it has been drilled into your brain that you do. When I said that you literally need like a bag of potato chips and a Bic lighter, I mean like literally you can do magic with that. You know what I mean? Like it's a little you absolutely can. You can do magic with just your fucking hands. Like you really don't need any implements or any things. But those people generally all at the same time, those people are probably a lot, like I have a lot of cool shit, don't get me wrong, but that is over the years of, it's either been gifted to me or I've thrifted it. But like I am not buying $500 plus occult things, you know, like I'm waiting for a deal or a yard sale or something like that. That's, and in my mind that's makes it a little bit more magical to me, you know, like cuz I like it's sort of like a synchronicity, right? It's like, oh, I'm out shopping around, oh, look at this beautiful old fucking cast iron cauldron, like fucking that's amazing that has just been dropped into my lap at this exact moment when I have, oh, you know, $40 cash in my pocket, look at me. That's the stuff that's magical. I don't really find it as magical when I'm like online, I'm like, oh, look at these athames, oh, look at this cauldron, and I'm like, it's just not the same to me.
I have 2 points to make here. There really is something to be said for like those items that come upon you naturally, like you wait and you find the right thing that's right for you, like if you're at a thrift store or maybe you find it on the street, like there's a box that I have, and I'm going to be really nondescript about it. I'm not even going to tell you what it is or use a name about it. This box is really fucking important to me, okay? I use it for really important shit to me. I found it on the street when I was on a walk, when I knew I needed to get shit to put together to keep all my shit somewhere. I like learned this when I was living on the street for like 3 weeks, 3.5-ish. That like sometimes you could just walk around with the intent to find something that you needed and it would show up for you. You know what I mean? And if you wanted to take it a step further, you could often write down on a list what you are looking for, like it's a shopping list, and just keep it on you in your pocket, and those things would show up. Right? So I kind of learned to use this. I helped a friend of mine named Ferry to get like a leather bag, like a leather carrying bag that was like a very expensive one. It was hidden under a pile of trash, and I was like, I got a feeling there's something under here, and I like kicked it and lifted, and I found like a little the satchel part of the arm, or like the sling part of the bag, and I like pulled it out, and it was like a good bag, and I was like, here you go. And she was like, what the fuck?
Or maybe you also used your like video game logic, right? Like under this pile of trash there must be a treasure.
I actually used my street logic when I was living on the street. I would hide my valuable things in piles of trash because people often won't want to go touch a refuse pile. So like when I left behind like all of my shit when I got lost on the street without my contacts and shoes it took me like actually like 5 days to get back. Actually no, probably closer to 4. But I just covered it up in a blanket that looked ratty, and it made it look like it was garbage, and nobody at all inspected it or touched it, and I just came back and took the blanket off, and all my shit was there in like the suitcase, right? Like, you'd be really surprised at how much just disguising something like garbage can hide valuable treasure.
And in a way, that's like a maybe not like a glamour, but like an invisibility kind of thing. You know what I mean? It's like a you don't see me, and that's magic in and of itself. And that's also like kind of what we're saying is like you didn't need anything particularly fancy. You just used a bit of logic, right? And
a
also,
blanket, just a blanket I had from my childhood that was old and faded and looked like it was discarded in the way that I had laid it down.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like what we've talked before, if you remember, about how we've worked really powerful magic just from pacing.
Yeah.
You suddenly go into that trance-like state and you're just pacing, and all of a sudden you just boom, you just turn out some really powerful magic and it manifests the next day.
And you're like, you might be a witch.
I mean, I mean, shit. I feel like sometimes some of the most powerful magic you can do is just learning to see, right? And it's a really weird skill, right? It's not even like you're seeing spirits, right? Because like that can come later on when you're really good at it, right? Occasionally you could see like someone's true form, you know what I mean? But it starts simple, and it's like noticing synchronicities, noticing signs that you don't normally notice. And I don't mean like metaphorical signs, like literal signs. Like, for example, when I started really learning to do this in Toronto, there's these signs that are called Discovery Walk, and they're almost always by like really weird and magically significant areas. And I learned that anytime I saw one of these signs, I could make an offering at it of whatever I had on me and go into the space, and I would learn or find something really cool and magical, right? So I just like literally learned from practice in my environment how I could enter different magical spaces by watching. And from that, I learned how to like read graffiti and really read into your environment, and like learn how people actually do use certain types of graffiti as a form of communication to mark who's been in the area at what time, right? So like if I go and I see a tag from somebody I know I've done at a protest with who's in the area, in a different area, I know that, people that I know are looking around that area. You know what I mean? There's like a whole kind of like
language and community built around
subcurrent. I don't want to quite say language and community because I don't want to put a finger on it, right?
Right. I like the word current.
There's a subcurrent for sure. Yeah. It's a subcurrent for sure. It's something underneath the surface that you have to look to see. But when you learn to do it, there's a bunch of pieces that connect together, from like graffiti and art pieces and cities, and like you eventually like find fucking secret clubs in like marketplaces and like hidden shops and shit just because you noticed a sign and like some indicator, and you're like, oh, let's go check this. And you found a golf club behind a taco place. That's an actual example.
Yeah, and that's kind of back to the occulty thing. It's sort of, that's what the early internet occult sort of sphere was trying to do. It was trying to be like, hey, this is where the cool people are. Hey, we're talking about this. Like, it was a lot of people like trying to just talk, right? And just build some kind of sense of community. People just trying to talk shop. Hey, what books do you have? Like, what website do you like, just trying to share resources and information. And it sort of got really twisted. Not to say that this sort of thing didn't exist before, because what Thorn was saying, like, Thorn's a little bit older than us. Like, maybe, I think she's like approaching 40. So I think she was saying in her video. So she's been in the sphere a little bit longer than we have. But what she was saying is this same thing used to exist. Like, people used to kind of like, like big name pagans. They were authors. They were the ones that like, oh, they're so rich and they're this and they're that, and everyone would kind of like talk shit on them. Kind of like how we do about our YouTubers and TikTokers and stuff like that, and even also the authors too, but really, what if you weren't like a big name person? All the rest of the people at the time, like back in the day of the early internet, we were all just trying to share information. But now it seems like we are all trying to establish ourselves as an authority, and it's a little weird, especially like when you see these accounts that are like, it's like everyone wants to educate. and I see a lot of the same regurgitated information, especially around like certain Sabbats, right? Like, Samhain is the blah 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 blah, and then someone writes a fact, and then someone's like, well, actually, it's the hurdy-dur of the schlurgadur, and the bliggity blah, and you're like, oh my god, I'm fucking done with the internet right now. Like, what ritual did you actually do for Samhain? That's what I wanted. Like, what did you do?
I feel you. Sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Scott.
No, I wonder if because I totally get what you're saying, Jay, about people always wanting to teach.
Yeah.
And I do wonder if that's I actually sometimes wonder if that's a symptom of people wanting conversation. Like people want community, and when they're trying to have a conversation, I don't think that, because the way that we're set up, we're the occult community tends to be very quick to, we have a hard time when someone says something. It's no one has the ability to read into it at all. There's no like, you have to people will, I literally see this all the time where people are like, yeah, but you didn't say this particular thing about that. And then the person's like, well, it's kind of given, right? Like, I'm not gonna, you can't expand upon everything. You know what I mean? Like, and they're expecting to have a conversation about things. And then people kind of are like, yeah, but you didn't say it to begin with, so therefore you didn't know, and it's suddenly all these assumptions are made. And,
it's like, do you want me to write a dissertation for every single fucking opinion that I have?
right, and that's unnecessary, right? That's it's not even it's also not,
it's absurd,
right? It's not normal, it's not, whatever. And I think that's why that's happening. I think people want to have conversations again. People,
I want to talk to each other.
Right, we don't. And it's funny because my little story actually goes into this. I made a post on my Tumblr recently about dreaming of
resurrecting the Tumblr.
I'm trying really hard. So I said I dream of a witch blur renaissance, and I talked about how, in the early 2010s, the rise of, Sarah Ann Lawless and Gemma Gary and all that. And I talked about how, I'm not saying that Tumblr was this beautiful place, because it sure as hell wasn't. I talked about how it was a social mess. And,
dumpster fire at times.
It absolutely was. But I said, I made a point to say that I think that we've grown up. I've kept up with at least two of the people that I used to follow on there years ago. And I was, just talking about how it would be beautiful to sort of create that community again, at least the good parts, where people were posting wonderful articles, and we had opportunities to find really interesting books that were coming out from rare publishers and tarot decks. And, there was just this beautiful sort of sharing of art and writing and links to these beautiful articles, etc.
And now everyone has a paid course available.
Huh?
And now everyone has a paid course available. Link in bio.
Right. Yeah, and it's funny because this led to it made me a little sad. It was almost as if this person came in purposely to dash this little moment of millennial nostalgia I was having. And it was funny because I remember them. I'm obviously not going to name them, but they came in with a whole it was weird because it got weirdly transphobic, which I don't even know why. They were like, when all of you, firstly, they did that whole infantilize me thing. They were like, all of you, young people, you, what did they say? You started to disrespect all the elders that believed in physical sex, which I was like, what does that even mean? But then I caught on. Yeah. And they were like, essentially how you threw away the Dianic witches. This is where we're going. You threw away all the Dianic elders, and therefore we no longer wish to teach because, this is what you all get. Now you just have aesthetics. Because my post ended about a little blurb about how witchcraft, paganism, magic, occultism are not just aesthetic. And they're like, well, that's what you have left. Essentially being like, you young people ruined it. And when I went on to their blog, they were supposedly a Dianic priestess. Now I actually went and private messaged them as not to cause drama, and I said, hi, I hope this finds you doing well. I just was hoping for you to elaborate. a little bit. And it was in part because some of her ramblings were ridiculous and I wanted some clarification, but also too I really kind of just wanted her to out herself a little bit. And you know, she managed to, I guess, catch on a little, and she responded, and I left her on red, just because I'm not looking for a fight. But what I like, you know, it was interesting to see that same. It and it's true. It has a hard time dying, right? That same, the darker part, right, of what we're this sort of this need to insert yourself. It's just like, I mean, there's so many things that we could talk about with this, right?
So
I know
many.
Matt talked about a couple years ago about unsolicited psychic advice.
Boom. Yeah. We talked about that
It's
too in
like
an episode.
like even if you really are seeing something, which 9 times out of 10 when you're walking down the street, you're probably not. But even if you are, which sure sometimes you will have impressions when you're really sensitive. But the fact of the matter is it shut up. You know, unless you really, really know the person, like you know them well, like, you know, you're friendly and whatever, then sure, open your mouth. You know, I would actually believe that you're actually picking up something more than not.
Especially if you know the person.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, you know, so many people just want to be like, I felt this thing.
There's a dark
And
presence.
don't get me wrong, like, you know, there are times with psychic stuff you feel really compelled to talk.
Yeah.
But you don't gotta.
Yeah.
And again, like, you know, that is if I believe it's all true. But the point of the matter is that there's a lot of these strange, nuanced little problems that definitely explode into bigger ones when they're all together. It's the you know, the lack of nuance that we have, the sort of the expectation of this, I don't know what it is, like if it's this expectation of like academic perfection, this sort of like you have to get it perfect every time. And it's kind of like, okay, you know, that's a little ridiculous.
I think when you
That's a power game.
Yeah. Like when you're blending these occultists, like you have, you know, folk witches, like from all different. I'm just saying folk witches in general, European magic, you know, whatever, from wherever the fuck you are in the world, you're carrying those folk traditions over, whether you call it witchcraft or not, or just folk magic, or just stuff that you do. You have that, and a lot of that tends to be like, what do you have on hand? You know, the nitty gritty, you know. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you have like ceremonial magicians that are like, you know, Crowley is the shit and all of these rules and the specifics of the things and
then even they're disagreeing about that too.
Right. And then they're all like, well, you should actually do it with Hardy Dur this way and blah, blah, blah.
Like
And it's just
Skinner
like
and whoever else.
Yeah, and it's like, shut up. Everyone shut up. Everyone stop talking and do magic. Thank you.
Right. It's kind of like, see that
shut.
when
Scott, never
at
shut
what
up.
at what point do we get to if the system works, why do we keep having to, you know, do that thing, you know, where we're like, you know, beating a dead horse, like
Right.
People are accomplishing the art with these systems, so why do we keep let's like oh, what is her name, oh my god, Silver Ravenwolf, right? Matt loves her, and I really, really like two particular books from her that I still really enjoy are Mindlight and the one I got from
met
her
and interacted with her in person.
Yeah.
She's cool.
And the fact of the matter is that her system works.
Yeah.
You can feel however you gotta feel, I guess, but
it works.
The fact of the matter is it works. So if the system is working, then she clearly understands magic. And that's all there is. I don't have to understand it for it to be an effectual system, you know? Just like how you're not initiated into every system. You know, you're not going to, you know, if you're not initiated into certain ATRs or Western mystery traditions, like, you're not going to know the whole thing. So what does it matter? You know, you're not going to get it. Those things aren't for you. It works. It works.
I also wanted to double back to when you were saying, why are there so many people trying to teach? I kind of have a lot of feelings about this because, like, I've been around occult communities for a long time, and I've seen a lot of people do the same song and dance. And I really think that it comes down to a couple things. One, people want to be a part of something, right?
Yeah.
And they don't want to just be a little bit part of something. They want to be one of the main people at doing the things, right? They don't have to be the central person, if there even is a central person. In fact, I think it's super toxic to have central person or central people, but that's another point. And what people often find is that those who are in more authority positions in the community, like people who've been doing it for a long time, people come to them with questions, right? They don't necessarily go out of their way to teach, but people ask them a lot of shit and they have a lot of conversations and they very clearly display knowledge, right? So we get this like weird mental construct where we think that what it means to be an accomplished practitioner is to teach, right? When that's putting the cart before the horse. The only reason those people have anything to teach at all is because they practice for so long, right? And if you're going to come along and teach the exact same shit that's already been taught, like, why do you need to reiterate what Samhain is? Like, maybe, sure, you might have a fan base, and maybe they ask. Maybe your specific niche of your content creation is explaining occult shit to people who aren't into it. That's fair. And especially if you're giving them references to a lot of more in-depth material, that type of commentary has a very specific use and it's helpful, right? But very often people want to do this, I can regurgitate the information to become more of an authority, to be seen as somebody who knows my craft. There is a massive desire to be seen in the occult community for some reason. It's part of the reason why I don't like talking about what I do. I'll talk till the cows fucking come home about concepts, about theoretics, about workings, techniques. I'm not really going to tell somebody what my in-depth personal practice is unless you're a really close friend, right?
Nope.
And I certainly am never going to air it in a book or a podcast or anything like that because it's my practice. It's not for anybody else. And I've done that shit a little bit in the occult communities I'm in. You almost never get people who properly appreciate it. You'll almost always get people who deliberately misunderstand it or misrepresent it or try to filter it through a lens. Yeah, or try to filter it through a lens that is not meant to be applied to it, right? So people will try to box you in the moment you start talking about whatever you're doing, whether you're like a certified member of a practice or whether you have your own personal paradigm or whatever. People will always immediately try to box you in, categorize where they think that you're capable, where they think you are on the capability spectrum, which I think is also toxic dog shit. The whole premise of certain practitioners having magic that is more powerful than everybody else's. Just shut the fuck up. That's not where your magic comes from. It comes from you. Okay? And everybody has themselves. Everybody has their connection to whatever the fuck created us because you're all alive, you're all breathing, and you're listening, and you're here now, right? That's where it comes from. It's not from somebody else's external sources. Sure, knowledge and systems will absolutely play a role. But at the end of the day, your shit comes from you. And ain't nobody going to be fucking walking around Merlin Mage infinitely more powerful than other people. And if you think you are, I hate to break it to you, you're a narcissist.
Yeah.
We
were snapping in the video. Snaps.
I'm over here like just nodding. We've talked about this idea of like the occultist, the mage's resume, right? You know, like show me your credentials, you know,
like a scroll,
right? I am initiated into
45 traditions that date back to the beginning of time.
My membership number is 1.
And it's, you know, and I remember, it's funny because I feel like when I first got into this stuff, not that I was ever, obviously very, like, you know, when you're first into it, you're not as in the community, you know, the occult community, you know, but I still feel like that wasn't there yet when I first kind of started getting interested in the occult.
What do you mean?
This kind of occultish resume, you know, you need to
No, it wasn't.
present your
Yeah.
why should we listen to you thing. I feel as if we were just really ready to have people who were like-minded. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? People who believed in the art, who believed in some way could, you know, could understand the way we perceive the world, the way we interact with the world.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it and it's funny because it's
Shifted.
again that 2010s era with, you know, and as much as I'm really appreciative of it with the insistence on academic texts, and
Flair.
it really drove academia to be like, hey, maybe we really should start, you know, looking seriously at pre-Christian religion and traditions and the practice of magic. And now we're getting a lot of academic work in the field, which is great. But at the same time, for the community, for people, you know, just the people, you know, it definitely did some damage. You
Yeah.
know, I definitely was affected by it. It definitely had a toll on the self-esteem. You know, the kind of the you know, you start to be like, oh, can I really do what I think I can do? You know,
Right.
you see all these incredible people, and then you start getting into these incredible ritual rooms, the rise of the ritual room, and you have these super ornate ritual rooms where there's
Mhm.
like floor to ceiling, you know, like it's all very perfect and beautiful. And then
Mhm.
you know, then you have your inner city people who look at our bank accounts and go,
Well,
nah.
shoebox it is.
Maybe an end table, you know.
Right.
My first altar.
Mhm.
And now don't get me wrong, how I want a ritual room too, because I think the idea is great. But I think it's one of those things where it's like, just because someone doesn't have a ritual room, or you know, this beautiful ornate you know, this beautiful ornate altar table, you know, where they're like shrine enclosures for all of your spirits, you
Right.
know, like you don't need all of that stuff. It
No.
became people are also, if I'm not mistaken, I think someone was talking in the same tag, occulty, about materialism and the
That's
occult.
also part of this whole conversation. This conversation goes deep. Like we have
Yeah,
only
yeah.
scratched the surface, and I'm actually like really happy this goes so deep because it's content. No, I'm just kidding. No, because it's a
Content,
it's a
baby.
structured way to talk about the things that we've already been talking about, just like in
Mhm.
our maybe in a less chaotic fashion.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we've brought up a lot of these topics. Here's like one of these first questions that I want to drop here to see everyone's opinion on. So here's the question: is consuming witchcraft content becoming a substitute for practice?
Ooh,
Wow.
Ooh.
Okay, look, I've
Right?
seen a lot of people who deal with this issue. Um, I don't have that issue personally. In fact, I fucking struggle with motivation to consume others' witchcraft content. Um,
Interesting.
I think that the most consistent thing that I do in terms of communicating with the witch community is through this podcast, which is a dialogue, which isn't the same thing as really consuming content.
Yeah.
When I'm consuming content to educate myself, it's usually about like social discourse or like video essays from people from a minority group who I want to understand their experience better, who I'm not from, and I can't know their experience, and I want to be a good ally, and not just ally, but fucking collaborator, right? So like,
I'm
I
sorry, I have
spend
to
my
go.
time more
Ally.
so.
I like
I spend more of my
Ally.
time educating myself on that kind of stuff.
Mm.
The witchcraft stuff, if I really wanted to educate myself more, I read a book. I'm not at the point in my practice where I need to be consuming ideas to get a better footing on my practice. If I want to do better in my practice, I go do my practice more or follow through on the shit that the spirits have told me to do that I haven't done because I'm fucking poor right now and they have a lot of patience, but it's fine. It's just I have shit to do, right?
Yeah.
If I'm doing the work, I'm gonna go do my shit, and if I'm not doing the work, I'm probably gonna be on the Discord arguing with people who don't understand me.
Mm-hmm.
And answer the first question, yeah, I think that was also one of the sins that we talked about a lot earlier in the podcast, like people broadcasting what they're doing to other people. And I think the good thing about asking why people do that is getting people to understand it, right? And if I've got like rules in place for how I talk about my stuff, even with like other friends and personal compatriots. Like if there's somebody who works like the same type of system that I do and they have relevant information and they're asking questions and we're sharing, that's okay because it's a dialogue. It's furthering skills. It's gaining knowledge. That's not like pumping myself up centered. But if it comes down to like I had a really powerful experience, I'll tell my friends because I'm like shocked about it and I want somebody to talk to about it. But I don't broadcast it to greater social networks like a Discord server or a podcast or a book. I will keep that as an intimate private experience that I really only share with like people that are in that circle that I feel comfortable doing it with because we're more so share our experiences in like a camaraderie kind of way. And it's like when you do have these things happen, I understand wanting to talk about them because it's supernatural, right?
Right.
How could you
And
not
who else
want
do
to
you
talk
have to
about
talk
it,
to
right?
about it? Like, you can't, like, call your dad and be
So
like, hey, I saw a fucking ghost,
yeah,
man. And he'll be like, okay, great.
I think as so long as you're fulfilling a very important need and you're honest with yourself and you're not like boasting or trying to the word we used to use way back in the 90s was posing, being a
Posing.
poser.
You're a poser.
There's a new term now I can't remember what it was, but it's essentially the same thing. Yeah, positioning, I think is what it was, where they were like positioning themselves like that. But yeah, I think these are
Poser.
all valuable questions that I think that more people should examine in their practice, right? And I don't think you should feel bad if you like feel the need to share stuff online because like the need for community is important, right? And like if you're going to gain benefit from it, don't deny yourself something that will help you. But at the same time, don't lessen your experience by just giving it out and throwing it in front of everybody so that they can shit on it because it's only going to make you feel worse in the end and you're whatever the experience was may not like it in particular.
Yeah. This occulty sort of, especially Thorn Mooney's response to this, I recommend like go on YouTube, look up the occulty tag, and just have a great time. But Thorn's particular video response, just like everything she was saying, like really resonated with me, and it was like very therapeutic for me in a different way. So like when I'm consuming witchcraft content, like the beautiful aesthetic pictures and just following other witches, I'm doing it just to kind of like passively create some sense of community. So like if I'm seeing like, oh, this person like really seems like they know what they're talking about, like with herbs, like that might be a good resource, kind of like put a pin in that in my head, maybe look through their blog or something like that for herb stuff. It's not really, I don't really talk much on social media. I don't really do a lot of posting on my own. And I think a lot of that's just because I'm held back because when I initially started thinking about like, okay, I really want to start creating, I want to start contributing something to the online digital environment, the occult environment. And, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a podcast. I originally went into it kind of with a little bit of that. We're going to educate people, right? And we did, and we do. But I think what I realize what we do is we educate just by having the conversations that we have. Like if someone stumbles upon that, oh wow, I didn't know that thing, or I didn't really understand it from that perspective. And so I think that's how we're doing our education. So I think when I originally got into this, I thought that this podcast was going to be this very like hyper scripted, planned, thought out. Everything is going to have this really educational topic. It's going to be polished, and that's how it's going to go. It was going to be like every other podcast. It was going to be like, what the people wanted, quote unquote, because clearly those podcasts are popular and people consume their content. So I have to do the same thing. And so I sort of fell into this like, and I would get depressed because I'm like, I don't want to take 3 hours and set up beautiful aesthetic photographs. Like well, I
do 20 hours of research a week for an episode that you're churning out every week.
right, or do that, and I'm like, I can't, one, I don't want to, right? So it just comes down to that, and two, I don't really have the time to. But what I was really focusing on was, why don't I want to? Like, do you not want to do this podcast? Do you not want to be a witch? Like I was like yelling at myself, like, why don't you want to? Were you just lazy? It's like, no, I'm not lazy. I just want to create something in the flow that works for me. And so we've kind of like, we've all kind of naturally settled on this sort of like chaotic conversational, style that works for us. Not everyone's going to like this. And honestly, I'm okay with that because I don't want everyone
It's
to
not
like it.
everyone's cup of tea, but hey,
Yeah.
that's okay with me.
Exactly.
That's fine, yeah.
But I was falling into this like, oh my god, I'm not scheduling social media posts. Oh my god, I'm not making a blog post every day. Oh my god, I'm not, churning out content. I'm a content creator. I'm not a content creator. And I'm not really an influencer either. I am just an occult practitioner screaming to the void of the internet. Hoping that someone stumbles upon what I'm talking about, because this is our kitchen table. Come talk to us. Come hang out and come talk about the occult. Like that's the
I'd
point.
still argue that's content creation, right? Because
I mean,
even
yeah,
if
'cause
you're
you're making a
not
thing.
trying to, yeah, and even if you don't fall under that explicit category that was laid out of like this is what a content creator typically does, we are still, for all intents and purposes, creating content because it's something that somebody can go click on, download, and listen to, and spend like an hour ish or a little more a week listening to if they're so inclined, right? Like that does kind of fit the traditional definitions of what content there is. And therefore, even if we're not making money off of it, we are contributing to the content creation cycle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's also a fair point too. And the other thing too is the making money part of it. The majority of people that are content creators of witchy stuff are not making a ton of money, despite how beautiful their posts are and how many followers they have and their view count and this and that. That a lot of that is not translating to dollars. It's just attention. And it really comes down to that question: would you rather be rich or famous? Right? Would you rather? And a lot of people, especially like when you're younger, you'll be like, "I want to be famous," and
let's be
you
real
kind of
though,
realize
fame does translate to riches.
It
Out
can.
of his lifestyles of the rich and famous.
How many famous people do you know that don't have money to take care of themselves, aside from people who formerly were famous?
I mean, like people that have committed crimes, like murderers and serial killers, like
That's
they're
why they
famous.
call them
They're
infamous.
Yeah, and they usually tend to be formerly famous or infamous, as Rue has stated, such as Marilyn Manson, right? But
Yeah,
traditionally speaking, fame is
fame,
upheld
yeah,
by riches
fortune,
and
yeah.
social fluidity, right? And your ability to access spaces, and they're kind of not separable, in my opinion. Like fame
Within
incurs
capitalism, probably
wealth,
not.
and wealth incurs fame
Yeah.
in the way that our society works, right? Um, hang on. I just got a text and I have to reset my brain. Right.
Ah.
So like let's use Donald Trump for example. He has no talent. I'm gonna. He has no talent. He's a hack. He's a terrible human being. But because society has a fetishization around money, he's famous, right? And
Yeah.
like let's look at Mr. the Beast, right? He got famous and kept reinvesting all the money, and now he has fucking stupid amounts of money and doesn't even consider himself rich, which is quaint to say the least. But the man got massive riches simply by utilizing the structure of attention and fame, right?
Right.
The two are intrinsic forces that are tied to each other in a modern society that fetishizes and heroically mythologizes the rich, you know?
But what's interesting is within the witchcraft community or the occult community, it's generally not that. Like a lot of us really are not wealthy people. There are not
No.
many of us out there that really have strong pull in this capitalist society.
So I noticed that
That's very
rich
interesting. It's something
occultists
I'd like to explore.
I noticed that there are rich occultists, like the benefactor class, but they're already not the type of practitioner that you're going to run into because they're already so insular because their wealth creates a bubble that keeps them away from everybody.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they're in
Unless
their
you're
own little
going to
pocket
like
universe somewhere.
yeah, and they look
Yeah.
for other people in their social strata to communicate and do that shit with, right? Like there's a guy that I think I kind of have run into in Toronto that for all intents and purposes seems to be similar to that. Like he has money to throw into stuff and likes to buy rare books and collect them and shit. So I don't know enough about the guy. I've never actually met him, but from what I've seen, he seems kind of like that rich benefactor, right? And there are rich people who like magic and make their own societies around it. Like it's a fucking
But they're
thing.
generally
But it's
not
not
the
really
people that are organizing a pagan pride event or a food
right.
drive or
Exactly.
like that is sort of like I really love this occulty conversation is happening because I think we all have the potential to reshape our online communities into a way that they can be more about sharing of information, networking. Hey, this event is happening, let's all meet up. We can make it more about that, like more of like a reflection and summary of our real lives. Like went to the local pagan shop today, that was cool, or the pagan pride event today, met these people, talked to these people, that's a post. But like I would love for social media to be more of a reflection and not less like, yeah, I got into 16 different fucking thread arguments today. And get off your phone, get off the internet, go and organize an event. If there's no event around you, organize one. Find people there. Will find at least one fucking person. There will be at least one that y'all can meet up and get something going. And you have to believe in that realness of connection because you are not going to find authentic, real connections on the internet, period. It's not going to happen. There is this screen, this screen right here. And like what I'm trying to convey here, and I think all of us are kind of on the same page, is a sense of that realness, but there is still a screen. Like there's still a layer. And as much as I would love to, hang out with everybody in a big like hall or something, it's just not possible. But there are 8 billion people on this planet, and there's just a lot of us out there that are interested in these kinds of things, and we can come together in better ways. And I really like my message is that if anyone's listening to this that happens to be a rich occultist or something, like please pay attention to the people that are in your community. Like if you're really in this
For real
fight for the human existence, fight for the planet, like I don't care what stance you have on, like we at least have to like save the fucking planet that we live on. We got to do something about this. So if you, and then like there's so many like there's like homelessness that runs rampant in our pagan community. People like housing is such like I'm always hearing it. Hey, anyone got a room? Hey, who's got this? Or losing my apartment, or I lost my job, or it's just we tend to not be very wealthy, established people. And I think it's because we've just been cast out, just looked over and whatnot. And if we don't come together ourselves and figure out how to take care of ourselves instead of just cutting each other down at every possible, like, what do you gain by telling someone that their Lilith ritual was wrong, right? Like, what do you gain from that,
Yeah.
A smug
right?
sense of
Nothing.
self-superiority.
Right.
Right.
Versus if you went to a local pagan pride and, you know, you just like talk to all these different people and you see them in person and they're wearing certain, talking to people and being with people is a complete sensory experience, and I understand that that sensory experience is difficult for some people. Totally get that.
And can be
Mhm.
overwhelming.
Yeah, and I get that way too. I you know, I got to step out, just step aside, you know, just whatever. But there's a whole sensory experience that goes about with people. You're looking at their body language, their bodies. They resonate a kind of heat. There's smells. People wearing different perfumes. Some people should wear more perfumes. You know, it's just it's a it's a very like you, and you are more like, if someone's like, oh, I did this, you know, ritual to Lilith, blah 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 blah, talking about it, if you're talking about them in person, you're probably not going to be like, oh, well, you're such a piece of shit for doing that, aren't you? You know, you're not going to say that to someone's face because you don't know if they're going to just come out and like slap you, right? That.
Right.
Or like, you know, do you really want to do you want to crush someone like that? Like in person? Like, do you want to watch them crush and crumble? Does that make you feel good?
I will
No.
also
Why do
say
I feel
though,
like we're talking about Reddit now?
What were you saying,
Sorry,
I mean,
go
it's
Scott?
a part of it, right? I mean,
Right.
like, Reddit has that really big. They have a really big occult forum. I forget what it's called. My friend Richie's on it. A lot of them, it tends to be very, very, from my
Is it
perception
just
of it,
r/occult?
it might be r/occult.
It is.
That it's funny because like even if you go on like other like witchy whatever things on there, it always leads you back to r/occult.
Yeah.
Correct. And r/occult, it is a lot of, especially now, it's a lot of people that are just like they're trying to throw curses at each other, they're fighting, they're like it got weird after a
Yeah.
while. It
I
became like
want
this like
websites
grandstanding
back.
Witchvox.
Yes,
Uh,
Witchfox is gone.
I really 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 want a what are those like what are they called, like encrypted end to end, like you know like one of those like a pagan witchy Facebook kind of thing where we can like it's specifically for us, you know, like a
Yeah.
social media that is for us, encrypted end to end, that like we could talk about what we want to talk about. We can, you know, protect our privacy. No one's stealing anything, you
I
know.
did hear some rumblings of, I think it was called Pagan Space or something like that, or maybe that already existed. There was another one that someone was trying to create, like a pagan social media network. I don't know if that would necessarily be the solution, because it might just be like the same
More of the same.
problem. Yeah.
More right, more of the right. I mean, there has to be a commitment in some way, like a communal or collective commitment to bettering ourselves.
It has to be
Like
the way
Mr.
we use social media.
Right.
Yeah.
But people I mean, there's even an argument, like just from a a social scientific perspective, right? There are arguments about the levels and how like the levels in which social media affects the psyche and affects the collective
Yes.
behavior and you
It's
know
not
like
good.
right well
No one's
right
benefiting from this.
it's certainly I think that they definitely didn't consider any of the bad effects. I love the internet because I love having information at my fingertips, right?
Yes.
I like being able to
But that's
like
harder to
steal
find.
academic, like you know, the PhD dissertations and stuff on,
Mhm.
you know, the magical practices of some far flung people, you know, like the Etruscans or something, you know, like I like being able to do that. But as far as the effects of social media on us as a species, um,
Yes.
I don't think that was taken into account. And now we're like, there's a problem,
Yeah.
and now, like you said, there is no literacy. There's as far as media literacy. There's also another problem that I have too, is that I think a lot of it, because all of it, there's so many things that are connected here. There's also emotional literacy that I
Mhm.
preach a lot on this podcast, because I think it's incredibly important,
Mhm.
to live a stable life. You have to be able to, I don't know, look in and look at yourself truthfully, and to say to yourself, do I activate here or do I sit down here? What is the appropriate response in any given moment? And I'm not asking for perfection. I don't think anyone is, but to be able to be like, okay, maybe I don't have to fight this, right? Maybe I don't have to fight this war. I don't have to activate for this argument, or maybe I don't have to come in and say to somebody, well, you're not Jewish, so therefore you can't work with Lilith, right?
Right.
Like, maybe you don't need to say that. Maybe it would, if people were able to sit down and say, what's the point? Is it true? And what resources can I give to prove my point, that are, and if I can prove my point, right?
Right.
People don't stop to think for a minute. They just sort of, this
Say.
hit, they feel something and it hits instead of lands, and they
Mhm.
react to it, right?
Exactly.
And we didn't take into account how social media was going to harm us that way.
What Thorne was saying in her video is, she was like, okay, so like, she was talking about her own experience. So she was like, okay, so early on it was a lot of like, okay, now we're all on the internet. It's like, oh, what books do you have? Like, oh, okay, cool. Can you send me a picture of this page? Or, so it was kind of cool in that way. And then she was also saying that like LiveJournal, that was like a huge, part, like that was before Tumblr.
Yeah, I remember
So
LiveJournal.
yeah, and LiveJournal was like a big part of like early occult spaces on
Mm-hmm.
online. And she was
I
saying,
like
she's like,
LiveJournal.
I started a LiveJournal because I realized a lot of the toxic shit that was happening at that time was, you kind of had to educate, you kind of had to post educational content, and you had to
Mm,
write educational content to establish yourself as someone who knows what the fuck they're talking about.
yeah.
Because when you're
Ooh.
trying to insert yourself into the larger conversation, there was a little bit of that. Well, where's your credentials, right? What makes you qualified? Well, see my 100+ blog posts about all these witchcraft topics, motherfucker. You know,
Mm,
um, so that was kind of like your live journal, your blog, your website. That was kind of like your resume, I guess, in a way.
mhm, mhm.
Your witchcraft resume. Now there is a severe lack of that. Um, I Where are the personal websites? Where are the just link collections? Like, I want a list of all these witchy shops, and
I
these
have it.
are chaos
I
magic
have it.
places, huh?
I actually have a growing list of shops and publishers. I will share it to anybody who wants it.
Please share that in the Discord. Please,
Okay,
please, please.
I have to learn how to do it. I'll do it though. Hold on. Keep
Yes.
talking.
Um, because like that's something that I really want to do on the website, like, and I want to find some other occultists that like maybe want to network in on something like this. We need collections of links to good resources, links to,
Mhm.
where are these, because Google, the way search engines are fucking rigged right now, it's rigged to just sell you ads and fucking products and Amazon, and
Hate it.
it's just bad. I'll be in like page 5, 6, 7 of search results, and it's just garbage, garbage. Clearly AI generated fucking content, garbage, garbage, garbage. And I think it's almost like by the occult going quote mainstream, right? The real information went underground again. Like it went really underground.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, because now it's all, again, it's all the stuff that, we try to get our listeners to make sure that they're not going for,
Right.
right? That sort of 5D.
Yeah.
all that stuff. And now that's all
Yeah.
you find,
Right.
Or
you find an
and
article about like Samhain, like
yeah.
you know,
And
you're
even
like,
then, it's
okay,
like
Sam Hang.
Samhain.
it's not even what also I realized changed, like specifically looking at like people who are like as far as what the general eclectic practitioner,
Yeah.
like because that's normally where the new neophytes enter in at, right? They enter in at this eclectic sort of just general witchcraft thing, and they come in now, and it's funny because like I'm sitting here with two books that I've had in my library for a long time, right?
Mm.
I've had, and one of them is Charms and Spells and Formulas by Ray Malborough,
Mm.
and the other one is A Century of Spells by Draja Mikaharek.
Mm.
And it's funny because now these young people, they have these AI generated books with these fake authors. They
Yeah.
have that are regurgitating weird information about like let's talk, oh my god, like crystal magic, right?
Mm.
And it's funny because I sit here and I kind of seethe with crystal magic in a really different way now, where it's kind of like we could be giving people things from when it comes to crystals as talismans and magical objects, things from the Petit Albert, Agrippa's Natural Philosophy. We could be talking about the old lapidaries, the French lapidaries, the French German lapidaries, the English, the old Renaissance lapidaries of stones that teach you the mystical, talismanic, and magical properties of stones that were used from cultures, that were the way they were actually used, not like this stone clears your karma. And it's like you can't even define karma in cultural context of where it comes from. Like, so like, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. The real information went underground, and but we're in such a good position with this tool of social media that we have, with this internet that we have, that it's so robust now that like we can connect in a really, really positive way. Let's pop those websites back up. We have things that build websites for you, okay? Like we had to write that shit by hand. Okay, we had to code those websites by hand. You can get a free website fucking anywhere. I don't care if your website is jaysoccultbullshit.wix.com. I don't care if you don't pay for your own custom fucking domain. I just want you to share occult information in this way that we used to. Like I'm so frustrated. So frustrated. But that's sort of like my kind of goal with how I'm going to start using social media and like the Discord and just all of these digital tools, because I was falling into this pattern of like, oh my god, if I don't post these beautiful things, if I don't become this content mill, then I'm never going to make it, quote unquote. I don't have aspirations to get rich off of the occult, off of magic. That's not really what it is. It's just if I could quit my day job and run my shop and, go give talks or whatever, just do that kind of like full-time thing, that would be very fulfilling to me. It's not about the money, because I know it's going to be a hustle no matter what. You know what I mean? It's a hustle whether you're working a 40-hour week or it's a hustle whether you're working for yourself. But I'd rather wear myself down to the bone for me and not for, just like some company. But that's me. Like work a 40-hour week if that's your thing. Some people just don't have the discipline to run their own means of getting income. But I know I do. And I just I'm glad that this occulty conversation happened, and in particular that I watched Thorne's video response, because it was very, very, I hate to say it was very good, but it was very good. And I really think everyone should really look at this occulty tag and ask those questions yourself, and also jump into the conversation. This is not just for creators and influencers and all these people. Like literally just turn your phone on and make a video response and share it somewhere, because
Or a
we
blog
need
post
this.
if you'd rather write.
Yeah, or a blog post. Is LiveJournal still a thing? Like, can we?
I don't.
Like,
I think it
you
still
know?
exists. The only thing with the I liked it to read from it. I liked what
Yeah.
I like the information that was on it. I tried with LiveJournal, but
Mhm.
there's a lot of moving parts, and I was like, I
Yeah.
don't get it. You
I
know.
liked
So
Zanga more than I liked LiveJournal. It was a
I
little.
remember. Wow. Whoa.
Yeah. Right.
As I suddenly become the old hag, I always all my years just. I remember that.
I'm just remembering my chunky computer keyboard with the white monitor and
Oh my
just
god.
was it Xanga or Zanga? I don't know. It had an X in the beginning of it, whatever
Did
the
it
hell
happen?
it was
Oh, see, I don't
called.
even remember that.
It was spelled Xanga, and I don't know if it was ever
Oh, it
Xanga
was.
or
It was,
Zanga.
yeah.
I don't even know. Whatever.
By the way, I changed it so that way anyone with a link can have access to those lists that I'm working on. It's in the inner
Oh,
circle,
okay. It's like a Google
so
Doc.
you can. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so can I reshare these links to the rest of? Okay,
Please.
so I'll take
I've
those
been
links.
wanting to put them out and give because some like and it grows and it expands and I learn things and I do what I got to do with it. So yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I realized y'all just briefly saw the inner circle chat. Terrifying. No, it was mostly links.
It really is.
We were like, all of our followers are a loser. No, I'm just kidding. We're not like that. Could you imagine?
Ew, I hope
Terrible.
there's no one like that. They're
I
probably
really hope
No, it's
not.
just
Like
Sophia saying based,
based.
which is standard.
But we're
No, I'm just
like in
over here on mute, coughing my face off. 'cause I'm a drunk.
Oh, that was me earlier.
yeah, some of the faces you were making, I was really trying not to focus on, and I was like, that's just beautiful, wonderful. Just
preserved for all time.
but yeah, we're at like an hour and 16, a little over. I really enjoyed this conversation. I would like to continue sort of this little occulty conversation because I think there's like 2 other parts to it. We kind of
Yeah.
covered questions in the first part, so there's actually 4 parts. So
More.
more. Keep you coming back for more. But yeah, so that'll be fun. But yeah, and seriously, check out the occulty tag. But any concluding thoughts from anyone here before we wrap up for today?
Something fun. If you haven't, I really suggest, even just for sheer entertainment, please watch Living for the Dead on Hulu if you can. It's Kristen Stewart's ghost hunting show, and it's super kitschy and very campy.
Kristen Stewart?
Kristen Stewart, yes, it's her
I love
show.
the Kesha one, so I gotta check this one out.
I actually need to sit down and watch it, the Kesha one. But please watch Living for the Dead. What?
Yes.
I love her.
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch it. I'll probably do that today. It's actually kind of on my to-do list for today. But if you haven't, please watch Living for the Dead. It is just so much fun, and it's just really, really gay.
Love it.
One of my
Love it
friends was
even
like,
more.
"Are you only binge watching it because they're gay?" And I was like, "Well, sorta,
Well,
but it's fun."
I'm the market audience. Whatever. I've been marketed at. God damn it.
Right?
Let me have
It's
this.
fun. It's really fun.
Come on, we've all got by a marketing campaign.
Right?
Finishing thoughts. I'd say free Palestine, but I want to take it further and just say what's happening is a genocide, and anybody who denies it is unconscionable.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with that. Absolutely.
100%.
It's disgusting. People are dying, and
to think if it's anything, and to think of it as anything but that, I mean, they're saying, "Oh, go to the safe area." Now we're gonna bomb the shit out of the safe area. Come on,
no,
now.
Netanyahu and the IDF need to be held accountable. Same with all of the other officials who've been enabling and enacting this.
Oh, also too,
Biden, stop sending them fucking money.
I also need people to understand as well that don't attack Muslim or Jewish people.
No.
You understand? You know what I'm saying? Like when we say, like when we're talking about this, we're not talking about, just like the people on the street that you see you know what I'm saying?
We're
Like,
talking about the government and
we're
military and
talking
people in
about those
power
people
in
that
the
are
country of
right.
Israel.
So
Yeah.
please don't attack or harm or
Belittle.
people. You know, no,
Yeah.
you know, no, don't. Yeah, you get what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
And like, to reiterate what I said Netanyahu and the IDF need to be held accountable, right? That's a
Oh,
good
totally.
example about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying you did anything wrong. I'm just saying that's a good example about being specific, right? Like, at no point am I going to say that everyone in Israel is responsible for it, because there's like people who actively oppose it in there. There's children that can't consent to it, that were born into a situation that is greater than them. What's a 5-year-old child gonna say or do or be responsible for, right? So, like, hold the people who are doing it accountable and
But have
make sure
compassion
they're
for those that
fucking
are.
dealt with.
Yeah.
But don't paint everybody as evil just because they're like born in an area and they don't necessarily have the ability to do something about it, right? Like, I've heard a lot of really reductive things, like saying there's no innocent people from this side, there's no innocent people from that side. And my response to those people is always, do you think that a 5-year-old child can consent to a war?
Right. And here's the thing, like,
Yeah.
especially from like a specific, I don't want to get off too much of a tangent about this, but from a US specific like viewpoint, other than the civil fucking war, like, what war has really come to American soil? I'm talking about like war, you know what I mean? Not just like an attack or this or that, like a full on fucking years long fucking war. Yeah, no, it hasn't happened to us. So we've been very privileged to not have to experience that. So if we could all collectively shut the fuck up about it, that'd be great. Check your privilege, Americans. Thank you.
The only words I have to say, if I have to douse myself in gasoline and and set myself on fire and say free Palestine and get no media coverage, I'll do that because I'm just that low. No, no, that's a terrible joke, but seriously, like, it can't be said enough. Also, I want to, on a completely, I was not going to talk about, because I just can't. I'm done with the whole
I know you're
thing.
checked out.
I'm checked out. If anyone loves this beautiful face that you see today, this palette is literally the Evanescence slash Hip Dot palette, and this is the first time I've done an ombre lip, and these fucking wispy lashes are everything to die for. And I would just like to thank my beautiful husband for getting me this Evanescence slash Hip Dot palette. Hip Dot, if you want to put me on your, thank you.
And I would like to thank the cannabis plant for. I was so high when that popped across my. I was like scrolling on Facebook,
We
and it was
always hail cannabis.
it was like an Evanescence. I was like, an Evanescence themed eyeshadow palette. Buy. It was under $20. It was like $20
It's also
after shipping.
Trixie Mattel approved.
Yeah, so I was like, purchase. That is a perfect gift for my wife. And look, here we are.
Trixie Mattel has another show coming out, and I'm really excited because I totally watched all of Trixie Motel.
I love
and,
Trixie Motel.
Trixie and is doing with her husband again. Is doing.
I don't
their
think
house.
they're married.
I thought they were married now.
They're not.
Oh,
We can't lock them down like that. Trixie will come for us.
Partner.
Partner, yes.
They're doing up their house this time on TV, and I'm really excited.
Yeah, that's gonna be a good one.
I know.
Trixie Mattel, one of the really good, solid queens out there. She's great. I feel like I could just like hang out with her. But anyway, we've been blathering on for well over an hour.
Everybody.
20. No, it's all good. We will see everyone in the next one, and we will definitely be continuing this occulty conversation because it's fun and it's what we do here. So cool. We will see everyone in the next one.
Bye.